Hey, what's up, fight fans? It's the Fight Fan Zone, and back with another prediction video. Actually, my first prediction video. This is just a quick main card prediction for the UFC 318. Nothing too crazy or technical, none of those stuff. This is just a fight fan prediction, just based on what I have seen, what we have seen over the years, and how this fighters match up, and how I feel this card is going to play out. Now, one big thing about this card is it is being looked at as the Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. He's hinted at walking away a few times in the past, but this time feels a bit more real. So the UFC built the whole card around him. Personally, I am not buying it completely. I feel like he's not going to retire for a long time. He may retire in the fight on Saturday, but not for a long time. And if Dustin goes out there and puts on a vintage performance, I honestly think he's going to just step back, look at the crowd, feel the energy, and just say, you know what? I feel like I can still do this on the highest level. So maybe not now, maybe not right away, but I see him pulling up a little GSP move on us, disappearing for a while, and then making a comeback. So if you feel the same way, let me know what you think. I just feel like it isn't really the end. But if you think it's the end, just hit the comments and let me know what you think. And just let us build this together. Let us chat. Let us talk. Let us vibe. The main card itself, it's not much of a stacked up lineup, as compared to what we've seen in the past. But it's pretty solid. The prelims, I feel like it's better. The prelims is low key fire because there are some matters fights in that prelim card. But either ways, I think we're in for a great night overall. So let's dive into these predictions. Let's go. If you look at the prelims, I mean, I am excited about fights like the Vinicius Oliveira fights. I think the Martin Vettori Brandon Allen fight should be a main card fight. I feel like that fight's got to be on the main card, right? Francisco Prado, that's another fight that I'm looking to watch. Ateba Gautier, this is the Cameroon guy, the guy that people call. I saw a few memes after his first fight in the UFC, where a few people said, "Oh, we thought Francis Ngannou left, so we have another Francis Ngannou here. He's Cameroonian as well. He had a pretty solid fight I think it was in the UFC Noche card, against that Mexican Puerto Rican guy. I can't really remember where it's from, but first round knockout to that guy. So that's a pretty solid. That's a pretty solid prelims bout we've got here. But yeah, that's not the focus today. So we're just gonna start with Michael Johnson, Daniel Zeoba. Michael Johnson is a veteran. He's a veteran of the sport. He's almost 40. I think he's 39 or almost 40 thereabout. But he has had a very, very strong career, and in the UFC, he has wins over some seriously tough guys in the lightweight division, and his losses so far, they are to absolute legends. I mean, he has losses to Khabib Nurmagomedov, Nate Diaz, Justin Gaethje. All of them, most of them, except for Nate Diaz, of course, all of them were young fighters that were still on the rise at the time that he lost to them. And you know guys like Thiago Moises, the Brazilian guy. But I feel like age just kind of caught up to him, just like it does with everyone eventually. There was a time that he was like 8-4 in the UFC, and he just went on a losing streak, and he'd lose a few fights, win one, and then go on another skid again. I think his best attribute for Michael Johnson, for me, has been his speed, has been his explosiveness and his timing. It still looks quick. I think in the fight against Ottoman Azaita, something like that, I think it looked fast in that one, but when you are in there with the younger guys that have cardio for days and non-stop energy, it becomes a different challenge, and we've seen him struggle with younger fighters. That's been said, this should be a fun fight. He's currently on a 2-fight win streak, and he still has his knockout power. One of those fights was a KO. Now, on Daniel, the Golden Boy is 3-2 in the UFC. He lost his debut and then he lost his last fight to Ribovics. Of course, that fight was on the no card and it was a wild one. In my opinion, Daniel was actually winning the fight up until the third round. But Ribovics, just turned up the pressure and landed a big shot. Daniel was visibly wobbled in that fight, but he stayed in there, He kept throwing back, he even threw some hard shots after he got wobbled. And, just based on that fight alone, I don't see Michael Johnson knocking Daniel out, Daniel showed that he's a dog in there, he's tough. And he already has 2 UFC wins. So, I feel like Daniel has got the reach. He knows how to control the distance. He can brawl. We saw that against the Ribovics fight. He's comfortable switching his stances. He fights maturely, especially for a fighter his age, 26 years. If these fights goes 3 rounds, which I think Daniel can easily handle, I see Michael Johnson fading. He has shown the tendency to, in his past fights, to just slow down as the fight goes on. Daniel is tall, he's 6'1". He's going to keep pressuring, but he's not reckless like that type of Michael Chandler type of pressure. He's calculated, he breaks you down over time. And I don't know, but maybe Johnson would surprise us with an upset. I don't know, but I think whoever wins will be the person that is able to just control the distance and mix it up. And the person more likely to mix it up uses jab, leg kicks, and using the distance to the advantage is likely going to be Daniel Zahuba. So my official prediction will be Daniel Zahuba by decision. And if he gets a KO, I will not write that off. He could also get a knockout. That chin has been tested a lot of times. Michael Johnson, he has accumulated a number of damage over the years. So if you get tested with a straight shot from Daniel, he's likely going to knock him out or something. But it'll be a fun fight to watch. My official prediction will be Daniel Zahuba by decision, though. So the next one, Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. This is a tough one to pick. Dan Ige is coming off 2 losses and a win against Sean Woodson. The other 2 losses are to Leron Murphy and Diego Lopez. And of course, the Diego Lopez fight was on a short notice fight. Maybe a well-prepared Dan Ige would have performed better. We can never say. But those 2 losses are to absolute tough guys in the top 5 in that division, Personally, I really don't like the situation that Dan Ige is in right now. Dan has had multiple opportunities to climb the rankings, and the most recent one against Diego Lopez and Leron Murphy, of course. But beyond that, he's had chances against fighters like Movsar Eloyev when he was the number 2 ranked fighter in the division. He's had chances with Josh Emmett. He's had chances with top 2, top 3, top 5 guys in that division. But every time he fights these guys, he just loses, and then he has to go ahead and fight an unranked fighter before he gets back into that mix again. I don't see why he keeps fighting, this unranked fighters, But that being said, Patricio Pitbull, Dan Ige, these 2 guys have the same build. I mean, just look at them. They look like they're from the same parents. I don't know, they just have the same build. Dan Ige is younger, I think maybe by 3 or 4 years. Dan Ige is the younger fighter. If I was to pick, I would compare what caliber of fighters have they fought. Patricio Pitbull is the Bellator legend. I haven't seen a lot of his fight. I have seen highlights, and it looks good in those highlights. But then the UFC is just a different game. When you come to the UFC, you have to be really, really good to prove yourself against this type of guys like Dan Ige. And if we compare the caliber of fighters, Movsar Eloyev, Leron Murphy, Sean Woodson, Josh Emmett, Diego Lopez, and all of these fights are close fights. Especially the Leron Murphy fight, that was a very, very close fight. You cannot say that, he has been outclassed by these guys in the top 5 or in the top 10 in that division. And if, as a Dan Ige, you're able to stand with, these guys in that division, I really don't see how Patricio Pitbull would just run through Dan Ige, honestly. And watching the Patricios debut against Yair Rodriguez. Pitbull struggled in that fight, especially in the first and second round. He started slow and he came out aggressive in the third round and he got knocked down. Dan Ige has that power. He has that one-shot knockout, and if he lands, if he connects clean, you're going to feel it. And the fact that Patricio is just the older guy, if Pitbull wants to win this fight, he needs to start aggressive. He cannot afford to make the same mistakes that he made in the UFC debut. And if you bring the fight to Dan Ige is just going to, bring the fight right back to you. So I would urge towards Dan Ige because I am a big fan of Dan Ige. And I really want him to be in that title discussion. I want him to keep his ranking and, try to fight some guys above the ranking and just try to get one of those championship fights before, it's night on his career. Danige is likely going to be the faster guy. He's likely going to have the longer reach. He's 5'7" with the height. Yeah, he's the younger guy. The caliber of fighters he has fought it's just different. For me, it's just different compared to the Bellator experience that Patricio Pitbull has. So for that reason, I would go a decision win to Dan Ige or a late round finish. Go to the next one: Kevin Holland versus D-Rod Daniel Rodriguez. This is a quick turnaround for Kevin Holland because he's coming off a solid submission win over Vicente Luque, and now he's stepping right back in. I think that fight was not even. It's not even up to a month, but he likes to stay active. He's the only active fighter that the UFC has right now. Since 2019, I think he's had 24 fights, and that is insane. I think about 9 losses and maybe 14, 15 wins in that period of time, depending on how you want to count some of the cash weights and those short notices bouts that he has. But regardless, that's elite level activity. But you know what they say? It is not how far, it is how well. D-Rod is also coming from a 2-fight win streak, although he did suffer a 3-fight losing streak before those wins. Losses to Kevin Gastelum, Neil Magny, Ian Gary, and these are absolute killers in that division. But D-Rod is very, very durable, and is going to bring the pressure every time. I want Kevin to win this one. I feel like he has everything he needs to win this one. He's long, he's rangy. He has excellent control when he's in that mode. He controls the pace and the distance very well. His jabs are clean, and if he chooses to stay disciplined and not avoid unnecessary brawls, it looks like he could just beat anybody. But the big thing with me is I wish Kevin would mix up his attack more, especially with his grappling. I am leaning towards Kevin Holland for sure. I want him to keep his rank, and if he stays focused, he can win the fight. D-Rod is going to stay in his face all day, so he needs to turn it up for real. So, but I'll go with Kevin Holland for this one. And for the next, we have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. This is the co-main event of the fight. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. I'm just going to come straight up. Roman wins this fight. I just don't see Paulo Costa winning this fight. First, Kopylov is coming from a solid 2-fight win streak. Roman's most recent loss is against Antonio Hernandez, and overall his losses are to strong grapplers, people that are wrestlers or grapplers that just dragged him down into deep waters, made him uncomfortable, people that didn't let him just implement his game plan typically, because he's explosive, he's accurate, he's very dangerous with his, with mixing up everything. So I see Roman winning this fight. Now, going on to Paulo Costa, I feel like Paulo Costa has been struggling since the Adesanya fight. Since that KO loss to Israel Adesanya, things has just not been the same. He's running a 1 win, 4 losses in his last 5 fights. A decision loss to Sean Strickland, to Robert Whittaker, and Martin Vettori, and his only win has been to Luke Rockhold, which, in my opinion, that fight was a wild, messy brawl. It was not a clean performance, And since 2020, he has also not been active. Costa has only fought 4 to 5 times since 2020, I think. And compare that to a significantly more active fighter with 8 fights in Roman. Roman has had 8 fights since 2020. I feel like that kind of inactivity really affects you in some ways. We have seen it happen with other fighters. So for me, it is clear that Costa's output, comparing his performances from the KO loss to Israel Adesanya, has just sort of reduced. A couple of his southpaw is very technical. He's an explosive striker. Leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks. He has those, and he can throw those kicks all night. The only thing that is an issue for me is if he does fade in the later rounds. If Costa wants to win this fight, take him down to the ground, discourage his game plan, ensure that he does not implement his game plan. But the question is Costa going to do that? Because Costa has been saying he's going to bring back the old Costa, but we just haven't seen the old Costa since the Israel Adesanya fight. I'm going with Roman Coppola for this one. He's been the more active fighter. Paulo Costa is already talking about Khamzat Chimaev. Come on, fight, make this fight first. We want to see you win. So, but I'll go with Roman Coppola for this one. And on to the main card of the night, the bout for the BMF title. Dustin Poirier is coming off an immediate loss to Islam Makhachev via a dust choke in the fifth round of that fight. And we all kind of knew how that fight was going to go, but what surprised a lot of people, including me, and maybe even Islam Makhachev himself, was how well Dustin was able to defend those takedowns. I don't think anyone expected him to stop as many takedowns as he did or get back up immediately as many times as he did. And let's be real, Dustin has only lost to elite grapplers. Guys like Islam Makhachev, guys like Khabib, Nurmagomedov, or to fighters who have just landed a perfect shot. Just like the Gaethje fight. I don't think anyone expected that head kick was going to land, or even that Gaethje was going to throw that head kick. So Max Holloway is also coming back after a knockout by Ilia Topuria. And that KO was brutal. And, anytime a fighter comes back from a KO loss like that, there are always going to be questions. Everyone knows Max Holloway for his granite chin. Dustin is a big puncher, He's big for the weight class as well. And Dustin may have lost to Islam Makhachev in his last fights, but for me, in that fight, Dustin did so well in that fight. I feel like he's a winner. Yes, Islam won and finished the fight, but for me, I saw the type of Dustin there. You cannot just put him away easily. And he made Islam work for every beat of that win. Let's talk a little bit of history. In their first fight, Max Holloway was just 4-0. He was the young and up-and-comer. I think he was 20 years and Dustin was 23 as at that time. And that loss was actually Max's first pro loss. Dustin submitted him with an armbar. It was some sort of a mounted triangle into an armbar. Max tried to escape, but then Dustin held on and sort of transitioned, and he got a tap out from him. In their second fight, it was very different. It was for the interim, lightweight champion. Both fighters were mature. Max had his combinations, but Dustin's shots were more impactful. Dustin's boxing was crisp. Holloway landed volume, but the most effective puncher in that game was Dustin. And I feel like Holloway was only able to do his best works when Dustin, was starting to sort of slow down. And those were the times when Holloway had few chances, but it was nothing compared to the amount of heavy shots and the amount of damage that Dustin Poirier was doing. Now, here is an interesting stat for you. Dustin Poirier has never lost 2 fights in a row. Never. Not once in his career. Never. Also, no opponent has ever beaten Dustin Poirier twice. And this is their 3rd fight, right? He has losses to Conor McGregor, Michael Johnson, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Islam Makhachev. But none of these fighters has ever beaten him twice. And he has fought Conor McGregor 3 times as well, which he won the last 2. So, I don't see Max Holloway been the first to do it. My pick for this is Dustin Poirier. This is a very interesting matchup, but I feel like Dustin Poirier is going to win the fight. He's going to land cleaner. He's going to land the more heavier shots. He's better at counter punching. I feel like he's going to beat Max to his punches, and he's going to mix it with kicks. He's going to try control the distance as well. It is going to be a war. Both fighters have said they are bringing everything that they have, and it's also Dustin Poirier's retirement fight, so he's coming in with everything that he has. I truly believe that while he enters the Octagon on Saturday, let us not forget, right? This is Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. He's coming in with everything that he has. I truly believe that he's entering that Octagon on Saturday thinking, win or lose this fight, this is how I write my final chapter. I'm going to come in there and write it the best way possible, So that is what makes this fight very, very compelling. And it's going to be war. It's going to be a classic one. But Dustin Poirier did it in the first fight, in the second fight, and I expect him to do it again here today. So Poirier wins this one. Thank you for watching. If you like the ideas that I shared, please let me know in the comments. It's just me, no gyms, no glove, but we live for the sport that we love to watch. Thank you for listening.